Welcome to Legacy Cast, your source for hearing from top influencers, industry experts, and successful business owners who are telling their unique story about life, values, goals, business strategies, and the various causes they are so passionate about. Future generations will come to be impacted by what is happening today, whether positive or negative, and our mission is to focus on what is going to affect change for the better. Hosted each weekday by James Snow, a former U.S. Army combat medic, now founder and principal advisor of James Advisors Group, a full-service financial planning firm in North Texas. This is Legacy Cast. Welcome, Legacy Cast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, coming to you from the Legacy Cast bunker here in North Texas. And we have today a guest that's from the East Coast here, Matt Houston. And Matt is coming to us from the Carolinas. And, here, everybody's aware of the weather that we've been having here recently. And so, we're certainly grateful that Matt is handling it pretty well. He hasn't sunk yet, so we're pretty good there. He's still staying afloat. And Matt has a program that we're going to be talking about with the 100 Connections project that he's involved with. But without further ado, let's bring Matt into the program. Welcome to the podcast, bud.
Thanks, James.
So Matt, obviously, when you hear the term legacy, that probably puts a lot of things in your mind, and that's sort of what we enjoy talking about here is kind of the different flavors of legacy. It doesn't have to be necessarily a financial one, but it's what people are doing in their world, in their community, and either through education or what have you, that's going to leave a mark for the next generation to follow on. And so when you hear legacy, what are you thinking about?
Well, for me, legacy has always been kind of that thing that you leave, the thing you leave behind, the way that you change the world, that impact that you're going to have, whether that's going to be business or you're going to create something or it's going to be your family, like that's sort of the legacy. You think about that in terms of finances, in terms of money left behind for the family. In terms of my project, that really comes down to, we talk about the world right now being the most connected that we've ever been with social media, but also the loneliest that we've ever been. So kind of the legacy that I'm trying to leave behind with this project is to break down some of those social media barriers and walls and teach people how to connect a little more authentically again.
So when you're talking about your project, if you can go maybe dive a little bit deeper into that and tell us sort of what's going on with that.
Okay. So I, up until recently worked in financial services up till this past July. And I remember had a young man say, I go to all these networking events around town and I tell them where I work and they all know who you are. They all know you. They all have a big smile about you. How do you know everybody? And I went, I really don't know. How is everybody your friend? I don't know. So a couple of things happened and I decided that it was time to move on. And the first thing that occurred to me was, how do we build these relationships? Because I do know a lot of people in Charleston. I have built a remarkable community down here. I just didn't know how. I couldn't really tell you. I couldn't pinpoint on the steps. So I decided to take this time and live off of a pension that I have from the military and live off of my savings and say, you know what? Let's go out and just meet 100 people where I really don't have any agenda. I don't have any job that I'm looking for. I don't have any product or business or service I'm trying to sell. It's just me talking to 100 people. They can be anybody. And we'll meet one a day. And wherever they want, however long they want to talk. And then we'll write about it every day. And we'll just see, kind of chronicle this journey of how we meet people and how we form these connections and what we can find out about that.
That's interesting. And so you're basically just kind of, doing in effect, sort of, I guess, on some instance, sort of what we're doing here with this program is, just finding out, what people are doing.
Yeah.
Going around and talking to people and finding out, what do they have going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very, very much trying to take that time to to really get into know other people and to let them have the freedom to put their agenda down. You know, I did this a lot when I was in business.
Mhm.
There was a lot of sitting down and talking, and I had something to get across the table, and they had something to get across the table. And so you're both kind of pressed for time. But what I found is when I was able to put that agenda down and they were able to put theirs down, we were able to make some really interesting connections and learn some really neat things about each other in the time, find some commonality that we had that we might not know we had before.
Okay, and so what is in your vision here? What do you think the end result of all that's going to become?
Well, immediately after this will probably, I think the big one will be, I discovered a lot of changes in myself as a person, a lot of changes and shifts in who I am as a person, how I act, the happiness level and everything else. So that'll probably turn into a book that talks a little bit less about everybody else and a little bit more about what in the world happened to me. Because you think about one person a day, it doesn't seem like a huge amount of people. But the impact you can have when you decide to just be really open and talk to one person a day for 100-day period is quite a bit.
Yeah, it's certainly a unique concept from what you're going after there. So do you feel like it's important that everyone consider kind of what they are themselves doing to impact their legacy?
Yeah, I think
what you're doing.
Well, I think when you get right down to it, you know, I was always struck by this one quote I read when I was in the military by Gandhi when he said, you know, be the change you want to see in the world. I was always really taken by that. I think it's easy for us to sit back and say things, right? It's easy to look back and go, well, I wish this was different. I wish that was different. But if you have those thoughts of changing the world, and if you have those thoughts, even of just, I want my family to do this, or I want this thing to happen, then I think it's really important for you to set your sights on that and dedicate some time and really drive forward to a legacy, because ultimately that's really what you're leaving behind. It's not going to be the toys or anything else. It's what you've done to kind of impact your community. I think it's hugely important.
Right. So how does your view on legacy actually affect what you're doing in a business standpoint?
Well, it really is driven kind of the planning. So this could have just been a neat little thing for me and kind of write it down in a journal and move on. But the idea of leaving the legacy, especially from a business perspective, when we started this, I had a whole bunch of people say, hey, I want to try to do the same thing that you're doing. I said, okay, great. And unfortunately, they had a really hard time replicating the project. We couldn't figure out why. So it kind of led me into this sort of coaching and relationship role now, helping people kind of figure out how to execute this, because everyone's going to do this a little differently, and that's great. But there are some stumbling blocks that can really make trying to pull something like this off exceptionally difficult. So we've really spent a lot of time trying to build that out and trying to find a way that hopefully I'm not the only person that does. And I know other people have done things similar, but hopefully this idea we can get to spread out and have more people do this across the way. Something we're pursuing right now is here locally within Charleston. We've talked to a couple of local business owners about doing connections tables. So, you know, we always have that one person in a restaurant or in a coffee shop who's sitting by themselves. So we're talking about sponsoring tables within these areas where they'll sit down and you sit and you agree that someone else might sit there and you're going to have a conversation with them. And then you write about that and send us the picture of that. And we kind of put that out there, this idea that we can still make random connections between two human beings and not just be connected on LinkedIn or Facebook.
Mm-hmm. So from a CEO standpoint, kind of looking at it through that lens, what would be maybe a couple things that maybe still keep you up at night about how your business operations are going?
It's the growing and the scaling and the next steps. This was easy when it was just me. Now I have a few other people helping me out as a marketing team to kind of build this out and grow. We're talking about doing some speaking endeavors and things like that. So that whole process of going from one fun little, okay, I'm going to meet one person today and write about it, to now we're looking at thousands of readers a week. And I'm going to end up going around and doing all these logistics things, seeing people, and how do we get that out? How do we handle the press? It's the real immediate scaling of an idea that really keeps me up.
So what different platforms are you putting this out on? Is it just like a written blog that you're doing it, or video, audio? How are you doing that?
Right now, we're just doing a written blog. We're hoping to launch some video here in the next 2 weeks that's a little bit different. We went with writing because I find that having conversations with people works a little bit better when I just have the written word. More people are open to it. Some people get turned off by the idea of being recorded.
Okay.
So we did it that way. But right now we're doing it. We have a website up, and we have posts through my LinkedIn, and then we have Facebook social media accounts on Instagram, Twitter, these various places where we're firing the links off.
Cool. So do you believe that it's important that people set up some sort of a strategy, or maybe a plan, as it were, for themselves, either both on personal side as well as the business side?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I notoriously say that I'm paralyzed by perfectionism. If I don't actually plan and start moving forward, I will delay forever. With this project, I gave myself a week and a half to launch because if I did anything longer, I would have gone, oh, the website's not perfect. Oh, this isn't perfect. So I gave myself a week and a half and publicly announced I'm going to be doing this starting this day. So I had no excuses, but I also then sat down and started drawing out the plan. What did day 1 through 10 look like? What did 20 through 30 look like? Because those action steps help you break it down, help you make it a little bit more concrete, and understand that more stuff's going to grow. As your legacy grows, there are going to be more things added to it, and having plans is what's going to help you build that up.
That's true. And then also you can reverse engineer. When you had that plan put together, you can reverse engineer and figure out, okay, this is what steps I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it before you get to it. And so you're able to kind of take care of some of those speed bumps before you get to them, which is a nice thing.
Absolutely. I mean, that was part of how that week and a half went. It was, all right, I'm going to do a thing. So I'm going to make a big announcement in Charleston that I'm going to start on this day. And then I went, great, I have a week and a half. So it was walking back. What do I have to get done in 9 days? Like, what do I have to get done? Where am I? What's going on? And that actually helped a lot more than thinking about it, because it would have seemed like an overwhelming mountain of work otherwise. Sure. But then it's just, hey, there's a bunch of work and we have 9 days to do it. So how much do we have to do now to be moving the needle?
Yeah, you're able to take it into bite-sized chunks when you have a plan of attack, which certainly gives you a much better approach than just going willy-nilly, as it were.
Absolutely.
Do you let's see, what are some of the reasons that you feel like maybe entrepreneurs are failing or giving up? We see a lot of that.
Oh, man. I think a couple of things that have been interesting, and actually since a couple of startup entrepreneurs have been part of this project, I've gotten a little of fun insight on that as well. Some of it, one reason I think is they get in love with the image and forget that that's a down the road thing, right? Like, you and I are both in the military. So I remember when I was an NCO and a senior NCO, my younger troops would be like, oh man, I want to have an office. And it took 10 years to sit in an office. It didn't happen the first day I came in. So I think that's part of it. Like, starting a business and being an entrepreneur is tough. Those first years are crucial, and they're long hours and they're lots of work. I think also inflexibility. I think not being able to roll with the punches and understand what you have and see how it changes, right? I'm always a big fan of the idea that, honestly, you can want to do whatever you want, but the market's going to tell you whether it was successful or not. So when I said I was going to do this, I didn't really pass it around to a whole bunch of my friends. I just said, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And either the market's going to like it and I'm going to build an audience, or they're going to hate it. And I'm not going to build an audience and it's going to be over. But that way, instead of my friends going, well, it could be good, but maybe this, I think a lot of people get that paralysis of perfectionism. They want it to be perfect. They want that endeavor to be wonderful. And it's just not going to be perfect. It's got to be good enough, and the consumer, or whoever your consumer, your audience are, have to be happy with it. And if that's going on, then you're being successful. Whether that immediately leads to a lot of roll-in of money, or whether you're still losing some money on it. I've talked to startup entrepreneurs with 15 or 16 software